I still remember the weight of that chandelier above my head as I stood in my youngest daughter's marble foyer, surrounded by her wealthy friends, their champagne glasses frozen mid-air. Victoria had just told me to apologize for embarrassing her. In front of everyone. Or leave her house forever. I smiled, looked her straight in the eyes, and said something that shattered her perfect life in less than 60 seconds. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all started. My name is Margaret, and for 37 years, I was a devoted wife to Thomas, a high school history teacher who made me laugh every single day until cancer took him when I was 58. We raised 2 daughters in a modest 3-bedroom house in Ohio. We never had much money, but we had love. God, we had so much love. My older daughter, Claire, she's a kindergarten teacher now, married to a good man named David, a mechanic. They have 2 beautiful children and live 20 minutes from my house. Claire calls me every Sunday. She checks in. She remembers. Then there's Victoria. Victoria was always different. Even as a child, she wanted more. She'd look at Claire's hand-me-downs with disgust, begging for new clothes, new toys, things we simply couldn't afford. My husband and I worked extra jobs to send her to college. I cleaned houses on weekends. Thomas tutored students in the evenings. We wanted her to have opportunities we never had. And she took them. Oh, she took them and ran. Victoria graduated with honors, moved to Manhattan, married Marcus, a hedge fund manager she met at some charity gala. Within 5 years, they had a penthouse in Tribeca, a summer house in the Hamptons, and enough money to make my head spin. She'd call occasionally, her voice dripping with stories about galas and private jets and people with names I'd only seen in magazines. I was proud. Of course I was proud. What mother wouldn't be? For the first few years after Thomas died, Victoria would visit. Not often, maybe twice a year, always briefly. She'd walk through my house with this expression I couldn't quite place. Not quite disgust, more like disappointment. As if my 40-year-old furniture and my garden-variety kitchen somehow reflected poorly on her. The change was gradual. Phone calls became shorter. Visits became rarer. When Claire had her first baby, Victoria sent a gift basket but didn't come to meet him until he was 6 months old. She stayed for 2 hours. "I'm just so busy, Mom," she'd say. "You understand." I did understand. Or at least, I told myself I did. Everything changed 3 months ago when Victoria called to invite me to a dinner party at her penthouse. A real invitation, in the mail, with gold lettering. "I want you to meet some important people," she said. "My colleagues, some potential investors. I've been talking about my humble beginnings, and I think it would be nice if they met you." My humble beginnings. That's how she phrased it. I should have known right then, but I was a fool. A hopeful, lonely fool who missed her daughter and jumped at any chance to see her. I bought a new dress, nothing fancy, just something nice from Macy's. $100 I probably shouldn't have spent. Claire helped me pick it out. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" Claire asked as I tried it on. "Victoria's been distant. I don't want you getting hurt." "She's my daughter," I said. "She's just busy. Successful people are busy." Claire didn't say anything, but I saw the doubt in her eyes. The dinner party was on a Friday evening in September. I took the train into Manhattan, clutching a homemade apple pie because I'd been raised to never show up empty-handed. The doorman looked at me like I'd wandered in from a homeless shelter. Victoria's building was all glass and steel and cold marble. When Victoria opened the door, I barely recognized my own daughter. She'd had work done. Her face was smooth, too smooth, pulled tight in ways that erased the smile lines I remembered. She wore a dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "Mother," she said, "not Mom, not even Margaret. You're early." I was right on time. 7 o'clock, like the invitation said. "I brought pie," I said, holding it up. She stared at it like I'd handed her a dead rat. "We have a caterer, Mother, but how quaint. I'll have someone put it away." Someone. Not I'll put it away. Someone. She ushered me inside, her hand barely touching my elbow, steering me like I might contaminate something. The apartment was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Everything was white and chrome and angles. It looked like a museum, not a home. "The guests will be arriving soon," Victoria said. "Just try to blend in, okay? Don't talk about money or politics or anything controversial. I know how to behave at a dinner party, Victoria. It's Vic now. I go by Vic in professional settings. Vic. My Victoria, who I'd named after her grandmother, now wanted to be called Vic. The guests arrived in waves. Men in expensive suits, women dripping in jewelry that caught the light with every movement. They all had that same look, that same carefully constructed appearance of effortless wealth. They air-kissed and laughed at jokes that weren't funny and talked about things I couldn't follow. Quarterly reports and portfolio diversification and properties in places I'd never been. I stood in the corner, holding a glass of wine I didn't want, feeling more out of place with every passing minute. Victoria flitted from group to group, her laugh high and practiced. She didn't introduce me to anyone for the first hour. When she finally did, it was like presenting a zoo exhibit. "Everyone, this is my mother, Margaret," she announced during appetizers. The room fell quiet. 20 pairs of eyes turned to examine me. She raised me in Ohio, very humble background, public schools, you know. But she taught me the value of hard work. The way she said humble background made it sound like poverty, like something shameful. There was a murmur of polite interest, and then someone asked her about her latest acquisition, and I was forgotten again. Dinner was served in a dining room with a table that could seat 20. I was placed at the far end, away from Victoria and Marcus, who held court at the head. The woman next to me, a real estate developer named Cynthia, asked me polite questions about Ohio as if it were a foreign country. "And what do you do?" she asked. "I'm retired," I said. "I used to work as a librarian." "How quaint," she said. The same word Victoria had used. Then she turned to the person on her other side and didn't speak to me again. I watched my daughter throughout dinner. She was animated, engaged, laughing at the right moments. She touched Marcus's arm affectionately. She was charming and witty and completely unrecognizable as the little girl who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms. At one point, someone mentioned family values, and Victoria launched into a story about how she'd grown up with nothing, how her parents couldn't even afford to send her to summer camp, how she'd had to work 3 jobs in college because they couldn't help her financially. It was a lie. Not entirely, but mostly. We'd sent her money every month in college. We'd paid for her textbooks. We'd visited her and taken her out to dinner and made sure she never went hungry. It wasn't enough for fancy vacations or sorority dues, but we'd helped. We'd always helped. But in her story, we were absent, negligent. She was the self-made woman who'd clawed her way out of poverty through sheer determination. I felt something crack inside my chest. After dinner, as people milled around with their after-dinner drinks, I approached Victoria in the kitchen. She was directing the catering staff, pointing at dishes with a perfectly manicured finger. "Victoria, can we talk?" She glanced at me, annoyed. "Not now, Mother. I'm busy. You told those people we didn't help you in college." "That's not true." Her face hardened. "This isn't the time or place for this conversation." "Then when is?" "Mother, please, you're making a scene." I wasn't. No one could even hear us. But she said it loud enough that several guests looked over. "I think I should go," I said quietly. "Yes," she said. "Maybe that's best." And just like that, I was dismissed from my own daughter's life. I called Claire from the train, crying so hard I could barely speak. She wanted to drive into the city to get me, but I told her I was fine. I wasn't fine. 2 weeks later, Victoria called. I thought maybe she was calling to apologize. She wasn't. "Mother, I need you to understand something," she said. "I've worked very hard to build this life. I have an image to maintain. And frankly, having you show up at my events, dressed like that, talking about being a librarian, it doesn't help me." "I'm your mother." "Yes, and I'm grateful for what you did. I really am. But I need you to respect the boundaries of my professional life. Maybe it's better if we keep some distance." "Distance? Victoria, I'm your mother. Claire is your sister. We're your family. And you'll always be family. But family can be complicated. It's nothing personal." It was the most personal thing in the world. I didn't hear from her again for 2 months. Not on my birthday. Not on Thanksgiving. Claire and I spent the holiday together, and we didn't talk about Victoria, but her absence was a weight at the table. Then, in early January, another invitation arrived. This time, It was for a charity gala Victoria was hosting at her apartment, a fundraiser for literacy programs, of all things. The irony wasn't lost on me, given that I'd spent 30 years promoting literacy as a librarian. "I'd really like you to come," Victoria said when she called. "I know things have been tense, but this is important to me, and it would mean a lot if you were there." I should have said no. Claire begged me to say no, but some part of me, the part that remembered rocking Victoria to sleep when she had nightmares, still hoped. Still believed that somewhere inside this cold, polished woman was my daughter. So I went. The gala was even more extravagant than the dinner party. There were ice sculptures and a string quartet and waiters in white gloves. I wore the same dress I'd worn before because it was the only nice dress I owned. Victoria's eyes flicked over me when I arrived, and I saw the judgment, but she smiled tightly and air-kissed my cheek. "So glad you could make it," she said, already looking past me at someone more important. For the first hour, I wandered through the crowd, invisible. People bumped into me without apologizing. Waiters offered me champagne that tasted like expensive bubbles and nothing else. I found a quiet corner near the windows and watched the city below, feeling more alone than I'd felt since Thomas died. Then I overheard her. Victoria was standing with a group of women, all of them dripping in diamonds. They were talking about their mothers. One woman complained about her mother calling too much. Another laughed about how her mother still didn't understand what she did for a living. "At least your mothers are sweet," Victoria said. "Mine is just exhausting." She showed up at my dinner party in a dress from Macy's, carrying a homemade pie like we were having a church potluck. They all laughed, that tinkling, cruel laughter that rich women have perfected. "And tonight," Victoria continued, "she's here because I thought it would be good optics for the charity. You know, showing I came from humble roots. But honestly, she's so out of place. I catch her standing alone in corners, and I just think, God, can you at least try to look like you belong?" Something inside me went very cold and very still. I walked over to them. They didn't see me coming. "Hello, Victoria," I said. She turned, and for just a second, I saw panic flash across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that smooth, professional mask. "Mother, I didn't see you there." Clearly. The other women looked uncomfortable, suddenly very interested in their champagne glasses. "Can we talk privately?" I asked. "Actually, we're in the middle of something. Now." Victoria. Something in my voice must have registered because she excused herself and followed me to a quieter corner. Even there, people could see us. I didn't care anymore. "How dare you?" I said quietly. "Mother, please. This is a professional event. You're embarrassed by me. Your own mother." "I'm not embarrassed. I'm just... You don't understand my world. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the standards I have to maintain. I understand perfectly. You've decided that where you came from is shameful, that your father and I, who sacrificed everything to give you opportunities, are somehow beneath you now. That's not fair. I'm grateful for what you did." "Stop saying that. If you were grateful, you wouldn't treat me like I'm something to be hidden away." People were starting to stare. I could feel their eyes on us. Victoria noticed too, and her face flushed with anger. "You're making a scene," she hissed. "Good. Mother, I am asking you nicely. Please don't do this here." "Do what? Tell the truth? Tell these people that you're not actually self-made? That your parents worked 2 jobs each to send you to college? That your father died exhausted because he was tutoring students at night to pay for your education?" Her face went white. "Stop it! That the humble beginnings you used to make yourself seem more impressive were actually years of love and sacrifice from people you now pretend barely existed?" I said stop. Marcus appeared at her elbow, sensing trouble. "Is everything all right here?" "Your wife is ashamed of me," I said to him. "Did you know that?" "Mother, that's enough," Victoria said, her voice sharp. "If you can't be civil, then maybe you should leave." "Civil? You want to talk about being civil after what I just heard you say about me?" It was just conversation. You're overreacting." "No. I'm finally reacting the way I should have months ago. When you dismissed me at that dinner party. When you told me to keep my distance. When you erased your father and me from your success story." A small crowd had gathered now. I could see Victoria's friends, their eyes wide with the kind of horror that comes from witnessing someone else's breakdown. This was probably the most authentic moment they'd seen in years. "You need to leave," Victoria said, her voice trembling. "Right now, or what? You'll disown me?" "Victoria, you already did that. You just never had the courage to say it out loud. I have never disowned you. You're being dramatic. Then introduce me. Right now. To all these people. Introduce me as your mother. Tell them about Dad. Tell them the truth." She hesitated. Just for a moment. But it was enough. "That's what I thought," I said. "Fine. You want the truth?" Victoria's voice rose, no longer bothering to keep up the pretense of calm. "The truth is, you don't fit into my life anymore. You're a reminder of everything I work to move past. Every time I see you in your discount store clothes, with your small-town manners, I'm reminded that I'm one mistake away from ending up back in that little house in Ohio, living a mediocre life." The words hung in the air like poison. "Victoria," Marcus said quietly, putting a hand on her arm. She shook him off. "No, she wants the truth. She can have it. I love you, Mom, I do. But I love you from a distance. I love the idea of you more than I love having you actually present in my life. And if you can't accept that, if you can't just be grateful that I still invite you to things at all, then maybe you're right. Maybe you should leave." The room was completely silent now. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. I looked at my daughter, this stranger wearing my child's face, and I felt something shift inside me. The last thread of hope, the one I'd been clinging to, finally snapped. "All right," I said quietly. "I'll leave. But first, let me tell you something. And let me tell everyone here. Mother, your father died thinking you'd turned out well. He was so proud of you. In the hospital, weak from chemo, he'd still ask about you. 'Is Victoria happy?' He'd ask. 'Is she doing okay?' And I'd lie. I'd tell him yes, because I didn't want him to die knowing the truth." "What truth?" Victoria asked, but her voice was smaller now. "That you're empty. That all of this I gestured at the apartment, at the wealth surrounding us, hasn't made you happy. It's made you hollow. You've traded authenticity for appearance, love for status. And the saddest part is, you don't even see it. You don't know anything about my life," she said, but there were tears in her eyes now. "I know that you're surrounded by people who would drop you in a second if your money disappeared. I know that not one person in this room actually cares about you, Victoria. They care about what you can do for them. Your connections, your money, your status." I looked around at the crowd. How many of you would still be her friend if she lost everything? If she was back in Ohio, working a regular job, living a regular life? No one answered. The silence was deafening. "That's what I thought," I said. "But Claire would. Your sister, who you barely speak to, who you treat like she's less than you because she chose to be a teacher instead of chasing money. She would be there. I would be there. The family you're so ashamed of would be the only ones left." "Get out," Victoria whispered. "I'm going. But before I do, let me tell you one more thing. Your father and I, we were happy. We had so little, and we were happy. We had love, we had purpose, we had each other. And when he died, I was devastated. But I wasn't alone. I had Claire. I had friends. I had a community of people who actually cared about me." I stepped closer to her. "Can you say the same? When you're alone at night in this beautiful, cold apartment, are you happy? When Marcus is working late and your fair-weather friends are at someone else's party, do you feel fulfilled? Or do you lie awake wondering if this is really all there is?" Tears were streaming down her face now, her carefully applied makeup running in black rivulets. "You can have this life," I said. "Your marble floors and your designer clothes and your friends who don't really know you, but you can't have me anymore. Not like this. Not as something you're ashamed of, not as someone you keep at arm's length until you need me for optics." I picked up my purse. "When you're ready to be my daughter again, truly my daughter, not this polished version you've created, you know where to find me. Until then, goodbye, Victoria." I walked to the door. No one stopped me. I could feel eyes on my back, hear the whispers starting already. By tomorrow, this would be the gossip of their social circle. The old woman who told off her daughter at a charity gala. I didn't care. Marcus followed me out into the hallway. Margaret, wait. I turned to face him. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't realize. She told me you two had a great relationship. She tells a lot of stories, I said. Most of them aren't true. What you said in there, about her being unhappy. You're right. I see it. She's on anxiety medication. She barely sleeps. She's always trying to prove something, to someone, and I don't even know who anymore. Maybe she doesn't either. Is there anything I can do? Love her, I said. Really love her. Not the version she pretends to be, but who she actually is. If you can figure out who that is anymore. I left him standing there and took the elevator down. The doorman who'd looked at me with such disdain on my way in wouldn't meet my eyes on my way out. Claire picked me up from the train station. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. What happened? I told her everything on the drive home. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. I'm sorry, Mom, she finally said. Don't be. I should have done that months ago. Do you think she'll come around? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe this is who she is now. That makes me sad. Me too, honey. Me too. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard from Victoria since. I've heard through friends of friends that she and Marcus are having problems, that the gala was considered a disaster, that people are talking. Part of me feels guilty about that. But a larger part of me feels free. I've been spending more time with Claire and her family. I started volunteering at the local library again, helping kids with reading programs. I joined a book club. I'm remembering what it feels like to be around people who value me for who I am, not what I can do for them or how I might reflect on them. Yesterday, Claire and I took her kids to the park. While they played, she turned to me and said, You know, I've been thinking about what you said to Victoria, about being happy with little. What about it? I think you're the bravest person I know, Mom. You stood in a room full of wealthy people and told them that money isn't what matters. That's terrifying to people like them. It wasn't brave. It was just honest. Same thing, sometimes. I watched my grandchildren on the swings, their laughter carrying on the wind. Claire's hand found mine. I'm proud of you, Mom, she said. And I realized something. I didn't need Victoria's pride anymore. I didn't need her approval or her occasional invitation into her life. I had this. My older daughter, who never forgot where she came from. My grandchildren, who loved me unconditionally. My small, precious life that Victoria saw as something to escape. My phone rang as we were leaving the park. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom? Victoria's voice, small and broken. It's me, I said. Can we talk, please? I looked at Claire, at my grandchildren fighting over who got to hold my hand, at the life I'd built without her. Yes, I said. We can talk, but Victoria, if we do this, we do it honestly. No more pretending, no more hiding. Either I'm your mother and you're my daughter, fully and completely, or we're nothing. There's no middle ground anymore. Silence on the other end. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. Okay. When? Tomorrow? Can you come into the city? No, I said firmly. If you want to talk, you come to Ohio. You come to my house, the one you're so ashamed of. You sit at my kitchen table and we talk like real people, not in your marble palace where you have all the power. Another pause. Okay, I'll come tomorrow. Come alone, I said. No Marcus, no buffer, just you and me. All right. I hung up and looked at Claire, who'd been listening. Is she coming? Claire asked. She says she is. Do you believe her? I thought about that. About the daughter I'd raised and the woman she'd become. About the crack in her voice just now, the vulnerability I hadn't heard in years. I don't know, I said honestly. But I hope so. God, I hope so. That night, I cleaned my house even though it didn't need cleaning. I made up the guest room even though I didn't know if she'd stay. I baked an apple pie, the same one I'd brought to her dinner party, because I am who I am and I'm done apologizing for it. And as I pulled it from the oven, golden and perfect, I realized something. Whether Victoria shows up tomorrow or not, whether we rebuild our relationship or not, I'm going to be okay. Because I have myself back. the self I'd been slowly losing every time I tried to fit into her world, every time I made myself smaller to make her more comfortable. I'm Margaret. I was a librarian. I raised 2 daughters. I loved a good man for 37 years. I live in a modest house in Ohio, and I am not ashamed. Not anymore. Whether Victoria can accept that, whether she can come back to this world she's tried so hard to escape, that's up to her. I'm not going to chase her anymore. I'm not going to beg for scraps of her attention or feel grateful for the bare minimum of acknowledgement. I'm going to live my life, love my family, find joy in small things. And if she wants to be part of that, really part of it, she knows where to find me. I'll be right here, in Ohio, in my small house with my discount store furniture, waiting. But not forever. Just for tomorrow. We'll see if she shows up. And if she doesn't, well, I've got Pi and I've got Claire and I've got my grandchildren. That's more than enough. That's everything.